insiders claim they saw coming. The story being shared is not about a single moment, but about years of tension, family pressure, and emotional strain that supposedly came to a head on one devastating night. Fans are asking why now, why this story, why Mel, and why Rob? What makes this narrative so powerful is not proof, but emotion. People online are reacting to the idea that a legendary friendship and family bond may have been hiding deep fractures behind the scenes. Some reports describe late-night phone calls, raised voices, and a house filled with fear. Others suggest regret, words left unsaid, and warnings that were ignored. None of this is confirmed, but the sheer detail in these accounts has left audiences rattled. Emotions ran high in comment sections as fans debated whether this was a hard truth finally surfacing, or just another exaggerated Hollywood myth. The most chilling part for viewers is not what is claimed to have happened, but the idea that even icons are not immune to tragedy. Fans are replaying old interviews, looking for clues, reading between the lines of jokes that suddenly feel heavier now. The family is said to be divided, opinions are split, and the internet has turned into a courtroom where everyone has a verdict but no clear facts. So tonight, we are not saying this is what happened. We are breaking down the viral story that everyone cannot stop sharing, the one that has reignited conversations about love, loyalty, guilt, and silence in Hollywood. Because whether true or not, this narrative has struck a nerve, and the question remains, why does this story feel so real to so many people? The viral story keeps circling back to the same quiet image, a large house that looks calm from the outside, but feels tense when you step inside. According to the reports spreading online, that night did not begin with chaos or violence. It began with routine, the kind of routine that hides trouble rather than fixes it. People familiar with the narrative claim the evening started with Rob Reiner trying to keep things normal. Dinner was prepared, lights were on, and conversations were kept light. But underneath that surface, something felt off. Fans reading these accounts say it sounds like one of those moments where everyone in the room knows something is wrong, but no one wants to be the first to say it. The story claims Rob had been walking on eggshells for weeks leading up to that night, always careful with his words, always trying to keep the peace. Sources in these viral reports describe him as exhausted, not physically, but emotionally, like someone who had been carrying weight for too long and no longer knew where to put it. The house was not loud, there were no obvious arguments, just long silences and clipped responses that made the air feel heavy. Emotions ran high internally, even if they were not visible on the surface. One part of the story that keeps being repeated is how Rob allegedly tried to use humor to diffuse tension, something fans recognize instantly from his public persona. A light joke here, a self-deprecating comment there, but according to the narrative, none of it landed this time. The laughter that usually followed never came, and that silence reportedly said more than any argument could have. Friends reacting online say that is the moment where the night truly began, not with shouting, but with the realization that the old tools no longer worked. As the hours passed, the report suggests conversations turned more personal. Accusations that had been buried for years began to surface, not all at once, but in sharp comments and loaded questions. The viral accounts describe a back and forth where past sacrifices were brought up, old grievances reopened, and every sentence seemed to carry years of resentment behind it. Fans are shocked by how familiar it feels, many commenting that they have seen similar dynamics in their own families, where love and frustration become impossible to separate.
One recurring theme in these stories is control and fear. Some versions claim Rob was trying to calm someone down while also protecting others in the house. Others say he was torn between standing his ground and backing down yet again. Either way, the narrative paints him as someone trapped by his own compassion. The more he tried to de-escalate, the more powerless he felt. And that emotional spiral is what makes this story resonate so strongly online. People sharing these reports often highlight a moment where Rob allegedly stepped away to make a phone call. Not a dramatic goodbye, but a quiet reach for reassurance. The idea that he may have been looking for guidance or comfort in that moment has fueled endless speculation. Fans argue over who he might have called and why, and whether that call changed anything at all. The lack of confirmed details only adds fuel to the fire, turning guesswork into drama. Another layer of the viral narrative focuses on the idea that this night was not an isolated incident. According to these reports, it was the result of years of unresolved conflict. Family members are described as divided, some urging firmer boundaries, others insisting on patience and understanding. This internal split is said to have created constant tension, where every decision felt like the wrong one. No matter what Rob chose, someone would be disappointed or hurt. The internet reaction has been intense, fans dissecting old interviews and public appearances looking for signs they missed. Moments that once seemed harmless now being reinterpreted as clues. Phrases that once sounded like jokes are now being read as cries for help. This kind of retroactive analysis has turned the story into a kind of puzzle, where everyone believes the pieces were always there. We just did not know how to look at them. In the versions of the story that circulate most widely, the emotional breaking point comes late in the night, after hours of unresolved conversation. Voices are said to have risen, not into screaming, but into something colder and sharper. Accusations that cut deeper because they were spoken calmly rather than shouted. This is the part fans find most disturbing. The idea that the most painful words were delivered without rage, just certainty. According to the narrative, Rob is described as trying one last time to reason, to remind everyone in the room of love, history, and shared memories. He's portrayed as someone pleading, not for himself, but for peace. The response he allegedly received is described as distant, dismissive, or unmoved, depending on which version you read. And that emotional rejection is what many believe broke him in that moment. The story does not present him as a hero or a villain, but as a deeply human figure, overwhelmed by circumstances he could no longer control. Fans are divided on this portrayal. Some sympathize deeply, while others argue that avoidance and delay only made things worse. That debate has become a central part of the conversation online, turning the viral story into more than gossip, but a reflection of how people view responsibility and love. As the night stretched on, the reports claim the house grew quieter again, not because issues were resolved, but because everyone was emotionally spent. That kind of quiet that feels heavy rather than peaceful. This is where the narrative slows down, focusing on small details like footsteps in hallways, doors closing softly, and people retreating into separate spaces. The calm before something unknown. What keeps people talking is not a single shocking act, but the emotional buildup. The sense that something irreversible was unfolding, even if no one could name it at the time. Fans describe feeling uneasy just reading these accounts, as if they are watching a slow-moving scene, where the outcome feels inevitable, yet still heartbreaking. By the time the night reached its final hours, the viral reports suggest Rob was no longer trying to fix anything. He was simply trying to hold things together long enough for the moment to pass. That shift from problem-solving to survival is what many readers latch onto, saying it mirrors moments in their own lives when hope quietly turns into endurance. The way this part of the story ends is intentionally subdued. There is no dramatic cliffhanger, no sudden explosion. Just the sense of a man alone with his thoughts, surrounded by people yet emotionally isolated. The narrative leaves him there, still trying to believe that morning might bring clarity or relief, even as the weight of the night presses down on him. This is why this story has such power, according to fans. It does not rely on spectacle, but on emotional truth. Whether real or exaggerated, it captures the feeling of a family on the edge, a moment where love, fear, and exhaustion collide, and no choice feels safe. The night does not end with answers, it ends with uncertainty, the kind that lingers and sets the stage for everything that followed. The viral narrative that has taken over social media does not begin with flashing police lights or breaking news banners. It begins much earlier in the day, with a sense of unease that many people now claim they can feel just by reading the accounts being shared online. According to these circulating reports, the hours leading up to that night were filled with quiet tension, the kind that settles into a home slowly and refuses to leave. Rob Reiner is described in these stories as moving through his house distracted, replaying conversations in his head, weighing every word before speaking, because he already sensed that one wrong sentence could ignite something he could no longer control. Fans are shocked by how detailed these reports are. They describe small moments that feel almost cinematic. Rob standing near a window, staring outside, not really seeing anything, hands clasped together as if trying to steady himself. People sharing the story claim he had been under emotional strain for months, and that this day felt heavier than most. Friends are said to have noticed it in his voice earlier during brief phone calls, where he sounded tired, less patient, less certain. The narrative spreading online insists that this night was never meant to turn dramatic. It was supposed to be routine, dinner conversation, rest. But routine had become impossible in that house, according to the story. Every interaction carried history, and every silence felt loaded. Rob is portrayed as someone trying to keep control, not through authority, but through calmness, which, according to many fans, was both his strength and his weakness. As evening approached, the reports suggest the atmosphere inside the house grew thicker. Conversations were shorter, eye contact was avoided, and everyone seemed to be waiting for something, though no one could say what.
Emotions ran high beneath the surface, even if voices remained level. The story claims that Rob attempted to ground the evening by sticking to familiar habits, turning on the television, making casual comments, trying to recreate a sense of normalcy that had already slipped away. One detail that keeps appearing in different versions of the story is how humor failed him that night. Rob allegedly made a light comment, something he had done countless times before to diffuse tension, but instead of easing the room, it fell flat. Fans reading this say that moment feels symbolic because it represents the loss of control, when even laughter no longer works. The silence that followed is described as uncomfortable, not angry, just empty. According to the viral accounts, this silence opened the door for unresolved issues to surface, not all at once, but in fragments. Comments about past decisions, choices questioned, sacrifices brought up again. These were not shouted accusations, but quiet statements that carried years of resentment. The story paints Rob as listening, absorbing each word while trying to respond carefully, knowing that defensiveness would only make things worse. People sharing the narrative online emphasize that Rob seemed trapped between two fears: fear of confrontation and fear of what would happen if he continued avoiding it. This internal conflict is what makes the story feel real to so many viewers. Fans comment that they recognize this feeling from their own lives, when love turns into obligation, and obligation becomes unbearable. As the night moved on, the reports describe Rob pacing through the house, not in anger, but restlessness. He is said to have checked doors, adjusted lights, and stood still in hallways as if deciding where he was needed most. This image of a man trying to hold together a fragile situation has become one of the most talked about aspects of the story. Another moment that fuels speculation is the claim that Rob stepped aside to make a phone call. The narrative does not say exactly who was on the other end, which has allowed fans to project their own theories. Some believe he was seeking advice. Others think he was simply looking for comfort. What matters to the story is not the identity of the person, but the implication that Rob felt alone enough to reach outside his own home for reassurance. According to these reports, the call did not bring relief. Rob is said to have returned quieter, more withdrawn, as if realizing that there were no easy answers left at that point. The evening is described as a series of emotional stalemates. No resolution, no closure, just people occupying the same space while feeling miles apart. Online reactions highlight how the story frames Rob, not as someone in denial, but as someone overwhelmed by choices. Every option carried consequences, and every consequence felt unbearable. This portrayal has divided audiences. Some see him as compassionate to a fault. Others argue that compassion without boundaries becomes dangerous. That debate has fueled endless comment threads and reaction videos. The viral narrative also suggests that others in the house sensed the tension and responded in different ways. Some allegedly withdrew emotionally, while others pushed back, creating a push and pull that kept the atmosphere. Unstable fans are shocked by how this mirrors classic family drama dynamics, where love and resentment coexist until neither can be separated. As the hours passed, the story claims, exhaustion set in. Voices softened, not because issues were resolved, but because everyone had run out of emotional energy. The house grew quiet again, but it was not peaceful. It was the kind of quiet that signals unresolved conflict. This is where many readers say they felt a chill, because the calm felt fragile. Rob is described during this time as sitting alone, replaying conversations, wondering if he should have spoken differently, acted sooner, or drawn firmer lines. This internal questioning is central to the narrative, because it frames the night not as a sudden event, but as the culmination of countless moments of hesitation. What keeps people hooked is how ordinary these details feel. There are no dramatic explosions, no obvious villains, just people struggling with fear, love, and responsibility. Fans say that is what makes the story linger, because it feels like something that could happen in any family, not just one connected to fame. Toward the later hours of the night, the reports slow down, focusing on subtle movements, footsteps down hallways, doors closing softly, and long pauses between interactions. The story suggests that Rob was no longer trying to fix anything. He was simply trying to get through the night, hoping that rest might bring clarity. The way this part of the narrative ends is deliberately understated. Rob is portrayed as sitting in a dimly lit room, listening to the sounds of the house settling, still carrying the weight of everything that had been said, and everything that remained unsaid. There is no resolution here, only the sense that something irreversible had already been set in motion. Fans reading this say that is what makes the story so haunting. It does not rely on shock, but on inevitability. The feeling that the night was a turning point, even if no one fully understood it at the time. The viral reports leave Rob there, surrounded by silence, uncertainty, and the heavy belief that love alone might not be enough anymore. The silence that settled into the house did not bring rest, according to the versions of the story spreading online. It only gave space for thoughts to grow louder. Rob is described as sitting still, yet feeling pulled in every direction, replaying earlier moments, wondering which ones mattered most. Fans reading these accounts say this stretch of the night feels like the emotional center of the narrative, because nothing dramatic happens, yet everything shifts internally. The calm is fragile, and everyone seems to sense it. The viral story claims that after stepping away, Rob returned to the shared space, trying once more to reconnect. This time without jokes, without deflection, just honesty. He allegedly spoke slowly, choosing his words with care, reminding everyone of how much he cared and how deeply he wanted peace. The response described in these reports is mixed. Some listeners are said to have softened, while others appeared unmoved, creating a divide that hung in the air. Emotions ran high, not through shouting, but through disappointment. One detail that keeps resurfacing in these accounts is eye contact, or the lack of it. Rob is portrayed as searching faces for understanding and finding distance instead. Fans say this detail resonates because it captures a moment when you realize someone close to you is no longer meeting you halfway. The story suggests this realization weighed heavily on him, making him question how things had reached this point. As conversations continued, the narrative shifts towards old wounds resurfacing, not in an explosive way, but through pointed remarks, references to past promises and perceived betrayals. The viral reports describe these moments as subtle yet cutting, each comment adding to a growing sense of division. The family was left divided, not by a single argument, but by years of unresolved feelings suddenly brought to the surface. According to the story, Rob attempted to slow things down, suggesting a pause, a moment to breathe, but the tension had already taken on its own momentum. Fans reacting online say this is where the story feels most tragic, because it highlights how even good intentions can fall flat once emotions reach a certain point. The idea that timing matters as much as intent becomes a recurring theme in discussions. The narrative also emphasizes how fatigue played a role. Everyone involved is described as emotionally drained. Patience weren't thin, and reactions sharper as the night went on. Rob himself is portrayed as struggling to maintain calm, while feeling the weight of responsibility pressing harder with every exchange. This exhaustion is what many viewers say makes the story believable, because it reflects how prolonged stress can erode even the strongest resolve. At this point in the viral story, the focus shifts inward. Rob is described as retreating into his thoughts, questioning his own choices.
The year's fans speculate endlessly about these internal conflicts, imagining him wondering whether kindness had turned into avoidance, and whether his desire to protect had unintentionally caused harm. This internal questioning becomes a mirror for the audience, prompting them to reflect on similar dilemmas in their own lives. Another layer of the narrative involves how others in the house reacted to this tension. Some accounts suggest certain family members withdrew, choosing silence as a form of self-preservation, while others pressed harder, pushing for answers or accountability. This push and pull dynamic is what keeps the story moving forward, creating a sense that the situation was spiraling even without a clear trigger. Online discussions frequently highlight a moment described in the story where Rob is said to acknowledge his own fear, not fear of conflict, but fear of losing connection. This admission is portrayed as vulnerable and sincere, yet according to the narrative, it did not produce the reconciliation he hoped for. Instead, it seemed to underline how far apart everyone had grown. Fans say this moment is heartbreaking because it shows how openness does not always guarantee understanding. As the night deepened, the reports claimed the house became divided into emotional spaces, rooms where people sat alone processing events in their own ways. This physical separation is symbolic in the story, representing the emotional distance that had formed. Rob is described as moving between these spaces, trying to check in, offering quiet words or gestures, but feeling increasingly ineffective. The viral accounts emphasize how time seemed to stretch during these hours. Minutes felt long, and the sense of waiting became oppressive. Waiting for someone to say the right thing, waiting for tension to break, waiting for relief that never arrived. This prolonged uncertainty is what many readers find unsettling, because it mirrors moments in real life when you sense a turning